News Radio 840 WHAS. Good Sunday morning. Bob Sokoler, the Louisville Real Estate Show, here with you until the top of the hour. With us this half hour, Randy Rocky with Swan Financial. You can reach Randy at 645-0736. In fact, you can hear the wind coming from his vent in his car. I'm going to mute you for a second. Also here, Chuck Crosby, the Crosby Law Offices, and you can reach out to Chuck at 499-6360. I'm Bob Sokoler, and of course, always here for you to help you list and sell your home, or with my agents to help you find a home. You can reach out to me anytime at 376-5483. Chuck, we start with a question for you, and a serious question, and I'm scared with this one because it could happen to anybody. Kathy writes in, my husband has been hospitalized with dementia, and he will not be coming home. She says, the doctors tell me he does not have the capacity to handle legal matters, including health proxy and, I guess, selling for homes. So what are her options to sell their family home as of right now?
Okay, first off, that's a horrible scenario. I know you haven't lived through it. You just can't understand the pain. But with the situation that we have, I'm presuming from your question that the two of them own the house together,
right?
And that there is no power of attorney. If there is no power of attorney, then what you have to do is to get an adjudication, go to court, get him declared incompetent. It could be about a 3-month process. You have to get them, get the doctors in. There's a little trial that's held, but between 2 and 3 months is the amount of time that takes. So that's the first step. You get them declared incompetent, and then be appointed guardian. And then once you're appointed guardian, you have to petition the court to sell the real estate or mortgage the real estate or something like that. That what we call a 389A action. That's the statute that sets that up. That process also takes between 2 and 3 months. Now, you can usually get a court date pretty quickly, but you have to notify everybody involved. But if it's just the two of them, you can get that court date pretty quickly. And then once the judge signs the order and the clerk enters the order, at least 30 days from the date that order is entered, you have to wait before you can sell the property or do the mortgage or anything like that.
So back up. So the 30 days, but that you could sell it, but it can't close. Am I right about that, or is that no?
On the contract, you're going to want to put down that it's subject to court approval.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you don't put that down, you could be in a bit of trouble, because even though the judge signs it and the clerk enters it, and it's the date the clerk enters it, it doesn't. That's not always a simultaneous action. Okay. It's 30 days from them, and that 30 days represents an appeals period. So that if somebody were to come in, let's say a son's involved and says, no, mom, you shouldn't ought to do that. That's wrong, yada, yada, yada. And they have some legal basis, then they could file that appeal. And if they file that appeal, then that order could be turned over. So just always make contracts subject to court approval. Usually trouble with it at all. From start to finish, you're probably looking between 4 and 6 months to get that done.
So this is such an important question. So Chuck, for Kathy, for anybody else who's listening to us right now, because we all have loved ones, whether it's a spouse or parents, what should we be doing to prepare for that eventual date? Yeah, good.
Durable power of attorney and a healthcare surrogate. A will, things depending on your how much you have, how many things you need to disperse, what you own individually as opposed to jointly. A will is helpful, but that takes care of stuff after you're dead. The big thing that I see is while you're still alive and you fall into this really sad and tragic situation, durable power of attorney lets you do anything for the principal that they could do for themselves. The healthcare surrogate lets you talk to the doctor and make medical decisions for them. So that's really the thing that they need most during their life. Problem is, when you know you need it, it's too late to get it.
Yeah.
So you have to do that ahead of time. And it's an easy process. Shoot, somebody calls me up, wants to do this. I could have a power of attorney and a healthcare surrogate put together in probably 10 minutes. I mean, it's not a difficult thing to do.
Not so easy is broaching the subject with your loved one or spouse.
People don't like to acknowledge their mortality. But then again, a responsible person will think, hey, if this happens to me, it's not just Alzheimer's, it's not just dementia. What if you get in a car wreck? What if you slip outside and whack your head on the ground?
Yeah.
There's all manner of things. Being responsible means dealing with the hard topics.
Yeah.
And if you have questions, and honestly, I have had people that come in here and one spouse wants to do it and the other, just doesn't, for whatever reason. Sometimes, they don't trust the other spouse. That
Right.
happens.
Yeah.
But that's fairly rare. And that would suggest another issue is at hand.
Yeah.
Some people just don't like to acknowledge their mortality.
So
it just happens.
Here's one final point on this, folks, and we'll move on, I promise. And I'm giving you this. This is the out for you if you're concerned about how do you approach your loved ones, your parents. Here's what you say. Hey, listen, I was listening to this radio show Sunday morning, and Bob, you don't even have to use my name, was talking about the need for us to have a plan. That opens the door. Now you can feel out how your loved one or parents feel about this, and just in case you want to see this, just so you know, you can see a replay of this, LouisvilleAnswers.com. So you'll have this. You can even show this to them, but you can listen to it yourself, take notes, because maybe you're in the car on the way to church, wherever. So LouisvilleAnswers.com, and this will help you. And we'll give you Chuck's phone number at the end of this segment to reach out to him as well for more information. It is a serious subject. It is important that we approach it now before something happens down the road where it becomes morbid to get into it and be able to reach out. All right. Good answer, Chuck. Thanks. Let's move over now to Randy. Thanks for holding on there, Randy. Rachel writes in. She sent this question specifically for you. She says, with the hike in short-term interest rates, apparently she's watching the reports, and current mortgage rates that actually came down this past week and the week before. So that's good. It fluctuates, but it came down a little bit. She is wondering, taking out a home equity line of credit, would that be a smart way to pay off credit card debt?
Yes, to answer your question. Now, it depends what her first mortgage is. Sometimes we would just want to do a cash out refinance and find out what her rate is on her first mortgage. Rates, NMLS number 22473266362. They get into, they're in the high fours now again for a 30-year fixed APR. Well, I don't have to do an APR. I'm sorry, Bob, on that. And then on a 5/1 ARM, their adjustable rate mortgage is 4%. So there's all kinds of ways to get through that and do a cash out refinance, possibly, or do a home equity line of credit, which will be a little bit higher interest rate now because prime is at 5.5%. And usually you're going to be at prime or half a point above that. So they'll be at an interest rate of 6%, and they're probably paying on their credit cards around 18%. So yes, it's a significant savings.
Got it. Sounds good. Hopefully that answered the question for Rachel. Go back over to Chuck, and I was considering, this one just came in off of email. I was considering not reading it, but I got to. But I don't want to get into a continual pattern here, but Paige has an unfortunate problem. She sent an email saying that her dad died, left her with the house, but there's no will, and the house is full of furniture and other things because he was a pack rat. And she's wondering, does she have to pay property taxes? Can she remove the items from the house and sell the house with no will? So we talked about that a little bit. This is a little bit different take. I don't want to get on the theme, but obviously this is important to a lot of people. So what should Paige do at this point, Chuck?
Okay, well, there's a couple things to keep in mind. Real estate can transfer inside and outside of probate. Okay. The problem that comes in is whether or not there's taxes involved. Now, keep in mind, the property can transfer by will. Okay,
Yeah.
it can also transfer by the intestate statutes. That is to say, me and my wife own a piece of property. I don't have a will. I die, it goes to our heirs as the statute indicates. It's not like you see on those late night infomercials. Oh, the state's going to take all your stuff. No, I mean, it goes to your children. If not your children, then, it's got a whole flow chart. So you can then have an affidavit of descent put together that indicates where you fall in that chain or that flow chart. And usually the kids are going to be just fine. If it was dad, he wasn't married, they had no other kids living or dead, then it would go to her automatically. But selling it becomes an issue. Without an estate being opened, there's a 2-year claims period for people to come back and say, hey, he owed us money. We want to get out of his stuff. So in a case like that, whether you have a will or not, you can still open probate. Okay. No problem with that at all. And once probate's open, well, then you can sell the house. You pay the money into the estate holds on to it for the appropriate period, which is 6 months, and then everything's cool. There's no,
say that again. There's no what?
There's no real issues.
No real issues. The one thing that I have seen and have helped, and just make note, folks, especially Paige, is that you mentioned your dad was a pack rat, and there's a lot of things in the house, and I know that can be overwhelming. And so we have a variety of vendors that we can help you with in terms of getting help to help clean out your house or any of the clients, people who are listening now. If you want, give me a buzz on my cell phone, and I'll be more than happy to get you the names of these people. This goes for you, Paige, and anybody else. 376-5483. 376-5483 is my direct number. Back to you, Mr. Rocky over at Swan Financial. Anthony is watching a lot of CNBC stories, apparently, about the economy, and he's wondering if anybody is willing to predict whether we're going to have a U or V-shaped recovery. This goes back a number of years. They're talking U or V. So the U, it's a gentle ease into a recession and a gentle ease out of the recession. A V is a sharp in, sharp out. And so Anthony is wondering what we're going through. Has it been declared a recession? From your standpoint at this moment, Randy, it hasn't been officially declared a recession, but there are a lot of people talking about it, right?
Well, I mean, the GDP is down two consecutive quarters. So yes, we are in a recession. Some people are trying to define that as recession different now. So we are definitely in a recession. I think it's going to be a long road. I think we got a tough road ahead of us. I believe the stat: 52% of all the people in the U.S. 18 and above cannot come up with $400 right now, and 72% cannot come up with $800. 18 and above, and that's it's really it's a scary number. So I think it's going to be a long, tough road for us, unfortunately.
I would tell you that I was watching CNBC myself, and they're talking about it's a 9% appreciation or inflation at this point, and the government wants to get back to a 2%. So it could be a while before we see anything change from that perspective. But hopefully, that, Anthony, that gave you Randy's intake. I don't have enough knowledge about knowing what the heck the market will do. Terry is, for you, Chuck, is moving out of state for his job and sold his house. He's unable to come back for the closing and has heard some areas of the country are doing remote e-signings and Zoom meetings at signings at the closing table, so he wouldn't have to come back into Louisville to sign the paperwork. He's wondering, has that started happening here in the Louisville area yet?
There's a lot of hoops you have to jump through. So the quick answer is yeah, it's doable. The real answer is there's so many hoops to jump through that it's actually pretty pretty simple just to go another route. I mean, you got somebody down in Houston. I've got a phone number I can call and have a person sitting at his door with an appropriate E&O policy and a notary commission that will get him, run through the whole process and get the stuff overnighted back to us. Whole lot easier than getting the approval from title insurance companies and from lenders to do an e-signing. So while one is possible, it's just not as practical yet.
Got it. We're going to take a break. When we come back, more of your questions. Our thanks for the folks who are here and are staying with us till the top of the hour. Randy Waukee, Swan Financial, 645-0736, and Chuck Crosby, the Crosby Law Offices at 499-6360. If you're looking to think about selling or buying, you can reach out to me anytime, 376-5483. We are back in a moment on News Radio 840 WHAS. News Radio 840 WHAS, Bob Sokoler, the Louisville Real Estate Show here with you till the top of the hour. Continuing with us, Chuck Crosby of the Crosby Law Offices, 499-6360. And Randy Rocky, Swan Financial, 645-0736. My thanks to Barbara Corcoran for her endorsement of us. We're going up to see her at the end of this month to say hi and shoot some more commercials. Greg's off today. And you can reach me to help you just to formulate a plan, either this year, next year, or beyond. 376-5483 is the direct number, 376-5483. All right, Randy, Leanne writes in, she's planning on purchasing a condo, and we've talked about this in the past, but on hold right now because of the lender. She says the condo that she wants to buy has a balcony problem, and we've heard this before.
Yes.
And she's heard us talk about it, and the building, based on the collapse, she believes, in Florida of the condo building. That's why everyone is so skittish now about selling and buying in a condo. So wondering, she says, have you got any more updates on the inspection process?
Well, it has to be right. It has to be cleared. Great question. And yes, the condo process is they have to come out the inspectors and say, hey, this is safe and sound, and in all areas. Sometimes they do a full inspection, sometimes they don't. But in this situation, obviously, it's a balcony situation, and that all balconies are safe to walk on. Yes, they would have to do that before a lender would loan to them.
So are you seeing this across the board with all condos or only specific complexes?
It's specific complexes. A lot of condo associations are doing inspections to be on the safe side. I'm not seeing where it's a lender requirement where you have to do it at this point, which kind of surprises me, to be quite blunt with you. But at this point, they have not done that.
I did a little more research into this in the past couple of weeks, and one of the concerns is by the lender that's involved, at least in one of these deals, is that if there's an assessment to make repairs of all the units in the condo balconies, that assessment could impact the value of the condos and the ability of the tenants people who are living there to pay for that assessment. So I think that's one of the key aspects of why everyone is so leery about this condo. Staying on a condo theme, but moving a little bit over to Chuck. Leo moved into a condo development here in the Louisville area. He sent us this email, says apparently the condo association has a regulation that they require residents to have parking passes, and they need to be displayed somewhere in the windshield area at all times. I know, Chuck, you're in a condo. Do you have that requirement for the parking?
Well, we're what they call townhouses. It's just in Kentucky. They don't recognize, the difference between a condo and et cetera. Okay. We don't know. If you were to drive into our neighborhood, you wouldn't really know we were condos. But if you're talking about the 3-story taller, I know several that do that.
Yeah. Well, Leo says it wasn't made clear to him about the regulation when he bought the condo, and yet the condo association charged him for violating a regulation and charged a fee without notifying him that there was a policy and that also he needs the parking passes. So he's wondering, what recourse does he really have?
I don't know that there is a whole lot of recourse there. Not knowing, what is it they say? Ignorance is no excuse of the law. He may not have meant to be in violation, but if he is, there's not a whole lot you can do about that. Now, the issue is, did they do it properly? If this is the first he's hearing about it is at the monetary stage, well, usually condo docs will have a sort of an appeals process. You get notified. You're told you have X number of days to, come into compliance, and then, you can appeal that argument. It's not just oh, hey, we're the cops, we're slapping a fine on you. Now, maybe, but usually it's not. So you might look a little deeper into that to see what exactly is going on. I think there's a piece of the puzzle missing here.
Just for knowledge for everybody, at a closing, is that when you discuss whether there's a parking policy, or when does that actually should come into play?
It would seem to me that that's something you'd ask well before that. I mean, you don't want to buy an investment property in a condo unit without finding out if you're allowed to, rent it. I mean, that's all kind of due diligence ahead of time to see the bylaws and the regulations and whatnot. That's just kind of something you'd take care of ahead of time.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing any paperwork regarding parking policies, but I believe it would have to be in the condo CCRs, right?
Yeah.
So that would be where they explain. And we have a lot of condos listed and sell them all the time. And I will tell you, good buyer agents will ask for a copy of the CCRs in advance to make sure in fact, sometimes the contract is dependent on the review and approval of the buyer of those CCRs. Not a bad idea.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
Feeling rental property. If you're buying a condo rental property, you really ought to make sure you're allowed to rent it.
Yes. In fact, I just had calls and conversations about that, about one of our condos this past week. So you are right on target, Mr. Crosby.
Regularly.
Yep. Randy, Bonnie thinking about buying a new home. She's worried because her friend Candy went through the buying process and was then told by the bank's appraiser that the appraiser would not approve her loan. She's wondering, how does that all work? So I think she's getting the concept a little askew here. You want to explain what we think this is, what's happening here?
Yeah, so there might be a railing issue or shingle issue, or there might be holes in the drywall. That's more than likely the reason why that she did not get an approval.
Yeah, and the other thing I was thinking that could be she's thinking or confusing, that an appraiser may say the value of the contract is more than the value of the actual condo, in which case they won't allow the deal to go through because the bank is not going to loan over what the appraiser thinks the value of that condo is, unless the buyer comes up with cash, right? So that could be the other thing that's going on there, Bonnie. But this is still a great time. We're seeing over the next 4 years, up until I just did a report, 2026. We're still seeing homes appreciate in value, maybe not at the 8, 10, or 12% plus that we've seen in the past year or so, but we're still seeing appreciation of 3 and 4% over the next number of years. So even if you get in now, you're still going to see appreciation. So don't be scared about the marketplace, because the market tends to scare some people off. You just have to know the facts, and that's what I deal in facts. Back over to Chuck. Lillian owns an apartment complex, is asking us in an email to advise how she should handle the following problem. Apparently, a tenant left in the middle of the night, owing Lillian for 8 months back rent. William was able to track down, I'm not sure who William is, track down the tenant, but the guy is yelling at Lillian for asking for his money back, saying he has no money left and he's disabled. The worst part about this is the tenant is actually Lillian's son, so that's creating a whole new level of problems. Well, that's tough. She rented a unit to her son. The son, wow.
A number of family evictions. So, yeah, it's never happy. And Thanksgiving next year is not going to be as pleasant as it could otherwise be. But if he left in the middle of the night and he has things there, clothes, chairs, equipment, whatever, even if he doesn't want them any longer, he still has possession of the unit. Possession is what's important, not actual, being there. So they still have to go and evict him.
So she just can't clean it out willy-nilly and then re-rent the unit.
No.
Wow.
At least put it that way. Let's say that there was to be a chair there, and let's just take the son out of the equation, because your relationship to the tenant is irrelevant. She goes and she takes that chair, throws it in the garbage dumpster, et cetera, et cetera. All of a sudden, I guarantee that chair just became a family heirloom that's worth tons of money. They're going to want that money back. Just because they left, they still have possession. So you go through, you do eviction, and then you follow the procedure. Otherwise, you're liable for being sued. Plus, what if you go and you release it to someone and he comes back? I was just on, he says. As long as you have possession, you have to use the court to take away that possession.
Anytime you deal with family members when you're renting or loaning a home, right? But I would also tell you folks to take note, whenever you deal with a family member and you're buying or selling a house, the same problems can occur where you get into an argument with a family member over something that's a business transaction, and that destroys the family dynamics for months, if not years. So I'm a big fan of just telling everybody, if you're thinking of buying or selling or renting, consult with an attorney like Chuck, or talk to a real estate agent. Find out what your options are before you go into an agreement with a family member, because ultimately down the road, it can come back to bite you, and you don't want that happening. You really don't. Quickly, 5 ways to help you sell your home now if you're thinking about it. We can do it for you, and we have a free consultation, no obligation. All you need to do is go to bobsellmyhome.com or call me 376-5483. My thanks to Randy Rocky, Swan Financial, 645-0736 over at Swan. Chuck Crosby, the Crosby Law Offices at 499-6360. Incidentally, we talk about this every once in a while, maybe not enough, that in addition to getting your loan closed, Chuck does a variety of other things, including some of the things that we were talking about today in terms of wills and the like. So you might want to give him a buzz and at least talk it over with him about what needs to be done at, again, 499-6360. We're out of time. You can reach me at 376-5483. We'll see you next Sunday on News Radio 840 WHAS.